Today I want to talk about the easiest way to make a sourdough starter. And I've done it lots of different ways, but using a pineapple is the easiest way. So we gotta make this pineapple into juice, and then we're gonna mix it with some flour, and we're gonna do that for 3 days. And by the third day you will have an active, although immature starter, but it will be very active and you'll be able to make bread, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so first of all we want to cut the pineapple so that we can fit it into our juicer, and you want to use you definitely want to use a fresh pineapple here. If you buy the pineapple juice in the store that's in a can or even in a glass bottle, the enzymes are no longer active, and the sugars will start to turn it into a higher pH. So we're looking, the reason why the pineapple works so well is that the pH of the pineapple juice is going to be exactly perfect for the bacteria that you want to grow in your sourdough starter. It's the perfect pH for that. So rather than using water and flour and making it take almost 7 to 10 days before you have an active starter, and also taking the chance that you miss one feeding and then your starter's gone to, it's already getting boozy and alcoholic on you. But with this method, it's very, I've never had this not work, and I've done many workshops on sourdough, and it simply has worked every time, and sometimes even by the second day I've got a starter I can use. So this pineapple's going to go into my juicer. So this is my Breville juicer, and it's been great. I've had it for probably 10 years, and it's still going strong. It's a bit loud. Kind of sounds like a plane propeller coming on and off, and it's very loud. But other than that, it works terrific. So that'll be my very enzyme-rich, perfect pH pineapple juice. I could have a sip of it. I won't do it from this cup because I don't want to contaminate anything. But I will have a little sip of that because I'm only going to need 6 tablespoons of that juice in order to make the sourdough starter. So now we just need some flour, and I have here some whole wheat flour. I'm going to do a whole wheat sourdough starter, but you could do a spelt or kamut or einkorn wheat. There's all different kinds. You could do a rice flour, you could do a chickpea flour. So you can do the gluten-free thing quite easily here. And I'm going to take my flour first so that my spoon's not wet. And I'm simply going to put 2 tablespoons of flour, kind of rounded tablespoons of flour. So I'm going to add a little bit more because that first one was a bit skimpy. But see, it doesn't have to be exact. We're going to look for a particular consistency. So I've got my 2 tablespoons of flour in my jar, and I'm simply going to add 2 tablespoons of the pineapple juice. And I'm going to get a different spoon. I sometimes like to use a knife because it doesn't stick too much to the knife. Now, depending on your flour, if your flour is very absorbent of the liquid, like you can see here, this is very dry. I would like a little more liquid in there. It's actually not even picking up all of the flour. So even though I say to use 2 tablespoons and 2 tablespoons, that is a guide. It's not, you're going to look for a particular consistency. So this flour that I'm using has consistently been very absorbent. So I'm going to add even a whole other tablespoon here, and we'll see if we get to the texture that I'm looking for. You want it to be like a sponge. That's what they sometimes refer to the sourdough starter as. And you can see even with one more tablespoon of pineapple juice here, it's still really thick. Now I'm going to show you the consistency that I want it. Here is my very active and mature starter, and you can see, maybe if you can see all the little bubbles that are inside it, and you can see the bubbles that are around the outside. That's it being fairly active. It was fed a while ago. If I feed it again, it'll perk up. But I'm going to take the end of my spoon here, and I'm going to stir this down, and you're going to watch it deflate. It's already, if I look at how much starter's in there now, that it was up to about here when I started, and just by stirring it, it let all the air that had built up in there, all the CO2 that makes your bread rise. So then when you see that happening, when it's rising like that, then you know it's gonna make your bread rise too. But that's the kind of consistency we want, right? Like, this is way too dry. And when I've been making other bread recipes with this flour, I've had to add a lot more liquid. Okay, now we're getting, I probably added one too many, but that's fine. Okay, but at least now you can see I can stir it around. It's got some juice to it. I could add a little more flour here if I wanted, but that's going to be just fine as well. So there's some leeway. It's not exact here at all. And actually, I'm just going to add a little more flour and give it a stir. Yeah, that's a little, got a little more tack to it. You can see when I wipe it on the side, it kind of sticks a little before it drops. That's kind of what I'm looking for. More like a batter. So all you're going to do now, tomorrow, this is just going to sit. You're going to cover it with a cloth, so something that air can get in and out of. So I'm going to take just a little piece of this white cotton cloth, and I'll cut it to a nice square shape, and then just get an elastic like this and let it sit out. And then tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add my, I think probably what I would do with this flour is do 2 tablespoons of flour and 4 tablespoons of the pineapple. And then I'll stir it again tomorrow, add that in, stir it up really well, and then let it sit again. And the third day I do the same thing. So I'm building up my starter. By the end of the third day, I should have about half a jar here of starter ready to go, and that'll be enough to make my first loaf of bread. So I've got my sourdough starter all nice and neat in its jar, and it can breathe so that the any bacteria, healthy bacteria that's in our environment can get in here and start to populate the sourdough. And also the sourdough is going to be eating the sugars that are in the pineapple juice, and also the carb that's around the grain, of whatever kind of grain that you've used. So that's just going to sit in a warm spot in your kitchen, and tomorrow we just feed it. They call it feeding when you add the flour and the either water or pineapple juice. Now we're going to use pineapple juice for 3 days and 3 days only. After the 3rd day, then you're going to use water to feed it. It'll be established and fine, and you just add your flour and water. No more pineapple juice. This Breville is an excellent juicer. I would highly recommend it. And the newer ones have a function where they do greens. So this one's really great for apples and carrots and beets and harder vegetables and things like pineapple. But when you get to tender things like greens and kale, this doesn't do such a great job on those. So the newer ones though have a speed that's much slower, and it's specifically for greens. So get yourself a Breville. They're not that expensive, and they're very easy to clean. So they just come apart in 3 bits, and really by the time I'll show you how long this takes. It doesn't take that long. I don't know if I'm actually going to do anything with this pineapple, but sometimes you can mix it in with a bit of banana and freeze it, and it makes a nice kind of ice cream in the summer when it's cold. But I'm just going to put that aside for now. I might use it in sourdough pancakes or something like that. And then there's this wire basket in here, and for that I need a scrubber. And where did that go? I put it in the old place. I've moved it to a new place. I put it in the old place, and I didn't know where to look for it. And then I just let it sit and air dry. You could dry it with a towel. Sometimes I do that too, but most of the time I'm lazy. I just let it sit. And then you're gonna just put it back together. And putting it back together is very simple. I won't be lazy today. I'll actually give it a dry before I put it back. And then we're going to put on our mesh basket. This is sharp in here, so you don't want to cut yourself. And it just has 3 arrows in there that it lines up with. And you make sure that this is behind you before you put this part on, because then it just snaps up like that. And there you are, you're done. If you have any kind of health problem, juicing is an excellent way to cool down your body, give it some very nutrient-dense live enzyme nutrition that's very easy to digest. It just kind of seeps right into your cells. So I don't think there's I can't think of any disease that will not benefit from juicing. So if you want to help yourself with health and vitality, get yourself a juicer and start doing even just 1 carrot, apple, beet, and a little bit of maybe ginger for some people, maybe not for others. But carrot, apple, and beet, you can do that, juice once a day, and your health will improve. Do it 3 times a day and see what happens. But I often recommend a juice cleanse for my clients who are having health problems. times as a way just to clean the system out, cool it down, give it lots of nutrition, and it's a good way to give your digestion a break as well. But namaskaram. I hope that was very helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up somewhere down there and subscribe to the channel. Take care.